Hello and welcome to the Tim and Shipe Show. This episode of our podcast is brought to you by Affinity Apartment Communities and Agape Ridge Cabins. Agape Ridge Cabins are beautiful cabins out in Hocking Hills, Ohio, where you can get a cabin, spend the weekend, spend the week, spend the month if it's open. But I doubt that it is because these places are booking up quick. Check out agaperidgecabins.com to check availability and book it soon, because like I said, these places are booking up because they're absolutely beautiful. They have just the latest amenities, hot tubs, just acres and acres and acres of just beautiful countryside in Hocking Hills, Ohio, the most beautiful place you can ever imagine. And Affinity Apartment Communities. Check out affinityapartmentcommunities.com. Fill out your application, get approved, and get moved in as soon as possible because these places are beautiful as well. From a one-bedroom apartment to a 3-bedroom house with a garage, these places, they have what you need, and these homes will settle you in right. Check them out, affinityapartmentcommunities.com and agaperidgecabins.com. This episode of the podcast is also brought to you by My Auto Care. My Auto Care is an auto care industry that will come to you. That's right. They come to you while you're at work, at home on the weekends. You don't have to take time out of your day to go and get your car worked on because they come to you. Check them out, myautocare.com. Book your next appointment. Give them a call. Schedule it so they can come to you, work on your car, and save you the hassle of sitting in those waiting rooms and wasting your time. Check them out, myautocare.com. They're working on both commercial and residential companies and customers. Check them out today. Let's get to the show.
Could be up to the offensive line. No, Prince's going to throw for it. Got to get it off. They go for the ball game. Touchdown! Touchdown! Michael Jacobs! Holy Buckeye! Tebow straight ahead into the end zone, and the Gators have put this one on ice.
Hello, and welcome to the Tim and Shipe Show. This is a college football podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. We're part of the Press Play Podcast Network, and what we're going to be doing for the next 45 minutes to an hour is talking about college football. Thank you so much for being a part of it today. And Tim, let's get started. Let's scratch that. Let's get started and start us off with a last week recap of your Florida Gators, because I missed it. I didn't watch the game, so tell me all about it.
Oh, you missed it. Okay, so this game, all I heard all week is how the weather was going to impact this game.
Okay.
Basically, like typhoon-type crazy wind and rain. Mostly just rain, like lots and lots of rain. Everything was soaked. And I was getting a little nervous because it was clear Kyle Trask had a hard time throwing the ball. He just couldn't grip it. So he was throwing it awkwardly. He wasn't accurate. Especially, in the first half, really at all. Really going almost late in the third quarter, he was still third quarter he did a little better. The conditions dried up a little bit at the third quarter, and then towards the end it started to rain really hard again. But what impressed me, and I think what stands out with this team, is how Dan Mullen is just such a calming influence, and it just showed why he's one of the best coaches in the country, because there were so many opportunities where I think it would have been easy to go to Emory Jones in this game just because of his running ability. And Dan Mullen didn't waver. Emory Jones didn't play in this game. He really didn't play at all. Kyle Trask stayed in, and he kept throwing the ball over and over when you're like, why are you doing this? It's not working. He kept with the game plan. And I think that said a lot, and it gave Kyle Trask a huge amount of confidence. And so what happened was going into the fourth quarter, the Gators just took control. They wore down South Carolina. There were some controversial calls. There was a weird holding play going on the sideline, but even like the official in the booth said he wouldn't have called it based on the fact that the defender wasn't really trying to get to the running back. After the Florida basically broke away for a long rushing touchdown, and the receiver was holding the defender, but the defender was also holding the receiver. And so it was just even the official, not just me being a Homer Gator fan, but the official in the booth said it was a good non-call based on the situation and how it played out. And then there was a pick play late in the fourth where, in my opinion, I don't think it really impacted the game that severely. It was a first and goal play, and it was a little pick. And, Muschamp went nuts, and he flipped out. Understandably, I know why he's frustrated and he's upset. He's playing his old team, and he saw a play that they should have been called. It absolutely should have been called, but it wasn't. It was missed by the refs. So basically, after the game, he was making all these comments about how the officiating. I think he even complained to the SEC conference about the game based on those. Those are the two specific ones that I can remember that were questionable. I mean, of course, there were some against Florida that could have been. I mean, some calls that Florida could have gotten as well, especially in the first half that South Carolina got away with. So I was okay with it, and I know if we had lost, I might have been a little more frustrated. But I felt like it wasn't the best officiated game by any means, but I don't feel like it was one-sided. So overall, we got out of there. We won by 11. It wasn't as close as the final score even. So considering the conditions, and a lot of people were saying it's a potential upset, especially after Florida playing LSU, and it was like, how are they going to come out and play? And then South Carolina playing Georgia, are they going to be overconfident? Right. Are they going to be ready for this game? And Florida just showed the difference between a Dan Mullen coach team and the last two coaches we've had, where they might have folded it up at after the halftime and just basically said, we're not going to be able to win this game. Like, we can't have the ball. It's over. Or they may have panicked and changed the whole game plan. And I give all the credit to Dan Mullen here. Like, he really just stuck with it, and we pulled it out.
Nice. So let's talk about officiating for a second, because we've actually had a request to touch on officiating and how it's affected some of these games. The one that stands out the most to me is the Tennessee-Alabama game, where they're calling personal fouls. It almost looked like they were looking for excuses and reasons to call penalties against Tennessee. You know how I feel about Alabama, so I don't want to, say that Alabama's deflating footballs or, doing anything blatant to the refs. Is there something to the fact that officials are looking for excuses to call penalties against the teams that Alabama plays?
I don't know if it's a week in, a week out thing, but in this specific scenario, it kind of seemed that way, almost like Tua's hurt, we got to make up for this. Yeah. So it did kind of seem like there were a lot of questionable calls against Tennessee, and I understand why their coach was upset. I don't blame him at all, because it wasn't just one or two, and it wasn't going both ways. It was consistently against Tennessee, a really, really bad team that's trying so hard to be – I mean, they were in this game. Yeah. Even late, they were in this game. So it was kind of like they're trying to go for an upset here, and the officials were not doing them any favors. So I can't blame Tennessee at all. It was one of the – I mean, specifically those highlight plays of, like, what are they calling here? Yeah. One of the most blatant – bad officiated games I've ever seen.
So is it just bad officiating, or is it something to the fact that they were almost trying to make Alabama win, force Alabama to win this game? Is it something as blatant as that, or do you think it was just bad officiating?
No, I don't think there's a conspiracy here. I really don't. I mean, I think there was some really bad officiating, and maybe they were looking more towards helping Alabama, but I don't think it was anything like planned, like, hey, we've got to make sure they win this game. I don't buy into that.
Okay. All right. So, I mean, I agree. I don't think there's anything really to it. I think that I think the SEC just has bad officiating, because I really haven't seen bad officiating in the Big Ten this year. I think it's mostly been in the SEC where people have been pointing out the bad officiating. So maybe it's just an SEC problem.
Well, Jim Harbaugh would have disagreed with you 100% on that one, based against his game against Penn State this past weekend. He had a lot of complaints about that game as well. He felt like there were some offensive – I think there were two offensive pass interference calls in that game that he felt like they were picking on Michigan. They were terrible calls that shouldn't have been called. And then when the same thing could have been called on Penn State, he said it wasn't. So I'm just saying, like, that's your opinion, but I know there's at least one coach in the Big Ten who completely disagrees with you on that.
Yeah, he complains about everything, though. It's like when my son is being super whiny, he's a 3-year-old, and so when he gets super whiny for a while, eventually I'm just like, okay, you're fine, just stop. And that's kind of how I feel like about Jim Harbaugh these days. When he complains about everything, I'm just like, all right, just stop. Like, you're fine. So what else are you going to complain about next week, Jim? You have a bad team this year. Suck it up. That's kind of how I feel.
This is a little off topic. My question for you about Michigan in general.
Okay.
Is it just me, or do they have a lot of people just making excuses for him at this point? And they're saying, not verbally, but they're basically admitting we're okay with being a 4-loss team year in and year out. This is year 5.
Yeah.
Year 5, and I don't hear any of the big name people or the important people at Michigan saying it's time for a change. They're making excuses for him.
I don't get that vibe here. I think a lot of people, especially after the smashing that Wisconsin gave them, I think there was a lot of people who are ready to send Jim Harbaugh away. But then when you reevaluate, there's no one out there. I think Jim has 2 years left on his contract, and I don't think either one of them is looking to add an extension to those 2 years. And so maybe they'll just let these 2 years ride out because I don't know. I don't think anybody's really happy. I don't even think, including Jim Harbaugh, is happy with where he's at right now.
Do you think it's okay to say we'll suffer being a bad team for 2 more years? Well, it's like, especially
who else are you going to hire? There's no one out there.
It doesn't matter though. It's the same thing as if a coach isn't going to stay. Like, what's it doing for the recruiting? Nothing good. Right. I would say you take a chance on a dark horse candidate. Yeah, somebody you don't know much about, but them. You never know. It's a coin flip at that point where where this recruiting class is heading. It's heading downhill. It's going to get worse and worse over the next 2 years versus this potential young guy. Look at Oklahoma. They let this guy take the reins.
Look at Ohio State.
It's working for Ohio State. So, you just never know. Like at this point, it may be like worth it for them to say, let's try this too. We have this young guy. Let's give him a shot just to see what happens. It might be better than trying to keep this guy and let him have 4 or 5 losses for the next 2 years. Pull a Jimbo or honestly, even to some extent, like Urban Meyer at Florida specifically, where he's like, I'm not going to be here next year, so it doesn't matter. I'm not going to work too hard on it. So that's where I think Michigan's going to head if they don't try something different.
Yeah, I definitely think it's time for Michigan to make a change. I don't think that Jim Harbaugh has lived up to anything. They overpaid him when they brought him in, and he was supposed to rescue them from, mediocrity when really he's just buried them deeper into mediocrity.
Right.
So I think that he's going to stick around for I do think he'll be back next year, and I think he'll finish out his contract. But I think you're right that he shouldn't, but I think he will, just because I don't think Michigan is ready to admit that they're wrong, and I think Jim Harbaugh likes the paychecks. I don't know.
Oh, I know he likes the paychecks. No question about that.
Right. So, yeah, I think they're just – maybe they are just happy with mediocrity. Mediocrity? Yeah, that's the right word.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, Ohio State recap, not a whole lot different. Ohio running on all cylinders. They jumped to number 3 officially in the AP poll. They jumped Clemson for the number 3 spot in the AP poll, which is the big news. But the biggest news for Ohio State this last week was Wisconsin losing to Illinois. That's the biggest news. Not even their win. Their win was par for the course. They had a slow first quarter, a dominant second quarter, and then in the third and fourth quarter they had their backups in. So it was, and they still only gave up 3 points. Pat Fitzgerald came out and said Ohio State's the best team in the country. So thank you for the compliments, Pat Fitzgerald. And I agree, obviously. But this Wisconsin losing to Illinois really took the mojo out of this game coming up. It's supposed to be 2 Big Ten powerhouses, supposed to be game of the year potentially. When they lose to Illinois, now it's just another game that Ohio State has to win by a ton. Otherwise, it's okay. They stayed close to a team that just lost to Illinois. So how good are they really?
Yeah, especially when they dropped to 13. That hurts.
Yeah, dropped out of the top 10. I'm getting to a point, though, where I'm tired of talking about rankings. It seems like every post, everything that I read or hear is about Ohio State getting screwed in the rankings. And I know I am an advocate for that. These polls matter. But, man, let's just get to the playoffs. As long as we're in that top 4, I don't care as far as Ohio State's concerned. And as long as we win every game, we're going to be just fine. And that's like saying as long as you eat healthy, you're going to be skinny. Like, obviously, if you win every game, you're going to be in. Style points matter. But I'm just ready for the playoff committee to come out with their first ranking so we can move forward with that. But Wisconsin losing really put a damper on Ohio State. So really it just comes down to so much, what I kept saying over the weekend was so much for a quality win next week. Because even if we win, we just beat a team that lost to Illinois. If we lose, we lost to a team that lost to Illinois. Like it's a no-win situation game, and it really isn't going to do a whole lot for us in anyone's opinion or anything unless we just completely demolish them. So
I agree. I mean, it's a lose-lose for Ohio State. Unless they win by 50, it's going to be a bad situation for them. Like it's like well, you only beat Wisconsin by 20.
Right. And they lost to Illinois.
Exactly. That's exactly what people are going to say. So, including me. I'll be the first one to say it to you. Right to your face.
I appreciate that. But, I mean, regardless, again, if we win out, we're just fine. The hard part is we have to win out because, I don't know, the Big Ten is tough. We have Wisconsin. I still think they're good. I think what happened to Wisconsin was they were looking past Illinois, looking to Ohio State, and they slipped up. I still think they're a really quality team, and I think this is honestly going to be a quality win because Wisconsin is not looking past this game. This is the redemption for Wisconsin to pull their team back from a bad loss. If they want to do that, they have to win Saturday. So it's a huge game, and it's a huge it absolutely has playoff implications. And so it's I don't know. I am worried about this game, but honestly, I'm not worried about this game because I think this Ohio State team is the best I've ever seen in a long, long time. I think probably ever since 2006. This is the best team where I've thought going into every game we should win every game. Like I'm not worried that we're going to lose any game. This is all business, and I mean 2006 didn't end great for Ohio State, but it was a great season for Ohio State. And this is just they're dominant. So I'm not worried that we're going to lose. And I don't even know if it's going to be that close. I think Ohio State's just that good this year.
That was my question, though. Is how did that season end? I couldn't remember.
Not great. Urban Meyer put his name on the map that year.
He did. The one thing I do want to mention about the Wisconsin game, though, is here's where you are as an Ohio State fan.
Okay.
You have to cheer for Ohio State to blow Wisconsin out and to win by 10. Because if they blow Wisconsin out, Wisconsin drops to like 20 in the rankings. If they win by 10, Wisconsin drops to like 15 because they're like, oh, well, they played Ohio State tough. So that's why
I'm looking I don't care where they drop. I think it's where and a lot of these rankings, that's why I think these AP polls matter because it's where you're at right now is what's important.
Right.
Because what I'm saying you have to fight injury, because I don't know. Yeah. Well, what are you saying? I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I was saying what I'm saying is like how Michigan State a few weeks ago, people were like, yeah, they're good. Now they're looking at them like, oh, man, maybe they're not that good. And that's where Wisconsin's going to be. If they have back-to-back losses, the Illinois game, I understand what you're saying about looking forward to the Ohio State game, but that's a bad loss, period.
Yeah, it is. But Illinois, I gave Michigan a lot of hay for how they played against Illinois because it took until the fourth quarter to even pull away. So maybe Illinois is better than what everyone's thinking.
Illinois has had one win coming into this game.
I know, but they played teams close. I don't think they're good. Don't get me wrong. I don't think they're good, but I think they're better than what everyone thinks they are. Does that make sense? Like, I don't think that they're good. I don't think they're a good team. I'd put them – they have a better record than Northwestern. And I thought Northwestern was a pretty good team. So I
hear what you're saying, but this is also the team that – sorry, they had 2 wins coming into this game. They had beaten Akron and they beat UConn.
Oh, that is something.
So that is something. They lost to Eastern Michigan. They lost to Nebraska. They got blown out by Minnesota. They got beaten by Michigan in a decently close game, and they beat Wisconsin.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Like they're not a good team. I'm sorry. Like Eastern Michigan. I'm pretty sure that's the former Gator coach team. So,
yeah. So hold on. Is Wisconsin a good team?
I don't know.
Yes.
I really don't know. Like,
Okay.
I would have thought so.
Okay. All right. Let's just keep. Is Michigan a good team?
No.
Okay. Is Penn State a good team?
To be determined.
Okay. Is Nebraska a good team?
No.
Okay. Is Minnesota a good team?
To be determined.
Okay. Do you see your trends here, Tim? Your
Nope.
bias is showing through pretty strongly right now. Those are
Why?
all Big Ten teams, and you don't think any of them are any good. So you're very biased, and so I have a hard time taking your opinion
You
seriously.
didn't ask me about Ohio State.
Well, because obviously Ohio State's a good team.
Well, see, there's your bias showing.
Well, obviously I'm biased. Yeah, but
Well,
I would
no,
say that in the Big Ten in the SEC, if you want to I mean, I am biased, but I'm not hateful towards the SEC. Like I think you're hateful towards the Big Ten.
I'm not being hateful. I'm
You're
being
hateful.
realistic.
You're not being realistic. You're being overly.
Okay, let me ask you: is Michigan a good team?
I think Michigan good. Good is relative. You see, I think they're not good for where Michigan should be,
Okay,
but they're good.
At least I gave you a direct answer to your question.
I'm giving you a direct answer. They're not good for what they should be, but I think 8-4 is a good team. So yes, I think Michigan is a good team.
That's a cop-out answer.
8-4 is good.
Is Minnesota a good team?
Yes.
Based on what?
Based on that they haven't lost a game yet. It's hard to go this far in the season without having an upset.
Minnesota's schedule?
So what? It's hard to win week in and week out.
Florida lost to a top 2 team in the country on the road at night.
I know, and that's what I'm saying. It's hard to go undefeated at this point in the season. What are there 6 teams left who are undefeated in the whole world? Okay, it's hard to go undefeated. So yes, as of right now, Minnesota.
I disagree. Have you seen Minnesota's schedule? Do you know the best team Minnesota's beaten this whole season? Nebraska.
Yeah. They don't have a good schedule, but again, every game is hard to win in college football.
No, I'm sorry. No. They beat South Dakota State. They beat Fresno State. They beat Georgia Southern, Purdue, Illinois, Nebraska, and Rutgers.
But look at even Clemson almost lost to North Carolina, who's not good.
North Carolina would beat any of those teams.
I understand, but I'm telling you, it's hard to go undefeated this long in the season. So I think it takes a lot of will and determination to go undefeated this far. I think in the past, Minnesota would have dropped one of these games. They've lost games like this in the past, so I think they're a good team.
I think that speaks to more how not good they were in the past to how good they are now. Now, if they beat Maryland coming up, they play Penn State, they play Iowa, and then they play Wisconsin to end their year. So those are the games they're going to determine. That's why I said Minnesota is to be determined. I think it's a fair. But
I think they may lose 4 games, and again, I think a 4-loss team is still a good team. They're not great. They're not, playoff worthy, but they're a good team. If you go 8-4, you're a good team in college football.
Well, I guess it depends on how you determine good then. Because if we're going by those standards, then I want to change some of my votes. Then Penn State's a good team because they have a chance to win 4 games or less this year.
Yeah. See,
Minnesota.
Maybe that's what it is. Maybe I was too hard on you because I think that your good is different than my good. That's why I said it's relative. I think Penn State is a really good team. I think they probably only lose 2 games this whole season. So how could you not say that they're good? I think Wisconsin is a really good team who had a Ohio State versus Purdue and Iowa-esque kind of game where you just drop the ball, you have rough weeks, and you look forward. For Ohio State, it was where they thought they were better than what they were after the Penn State game. Anyway, and so I think. I think there are a lot of good teams in the Big Ten.
So Indiana, are they a good team?
No, Indiana's not a good team.
All right, well, they have a legitimate shot of only being 4-loss team this year, so I guess you need to change your standards a little bit.
There won't be. I think they'll be a 6-loss team.
They have a legit chance of only having 4 losses this year.
Sure.
2 losses right now. So if they beat Nebraska and Northwestern, is that reasonable?
If they beat Wisconsin, what does that say again?
If they beat Nebraska and Northwestern.
I think that they will lose to Northwestern, and they will beat Nebraska.
Okay, well then if they upset Penn State or Michigan, they're a 4-loss team.
Okay. Well.
Yeah, so they'd be a 4-loss team at that point.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to make sure you see that. Your standards are pretty loose.
I think if you lose 4 games in college football, you're a good team. Like if that's your season, you're not where Michigan needs to be. If Ohio State had lost 4 games, they'd fire their coach. So different teams have different standards. So, but I think Michigan's a good. So I'm looking at it more as like quality wins. Okay, so I think beating Michigan is a quality win. I think beating Wisconsin is a quality win. Just like I think Florida beating. South Carolina, I think that was a quality win this week because South Carolina is coming off a big game, and so I think that's a quality win for Florida because I think South Carolina, I think they're a good team.
Okay, I'll live with your decision. I don't totally agree. I think that's a very generous definition of a good team, but that's okay.
Okay, all right. So let's hit our Gator Buck squad. last week it was awesome having Ben Billman on to decide. This week we are relying on Chase Smith again, just like he still needs to decide what is our defensive line? No.
Yeah, defensive line and our linebackers.
Defensive line, linebackers, and now our safeties. So we're still waiting on that. But as it stands right now, we have Ohio State quarterback. No, Florida quarterback, Ohio State running back, Ohio State wide receivers, a mix on offensive line, and then we have a mix.
Gator tight ends.
We have all Gator tight ends, and we have a mix at cornerback between Ohio State and Florida. And so let's go. We're going a little deeper from quarterbacks to safeties. I'll start with my number 2 safety is Mike Doss. He was a 3-year starter at Ohio State and a 3-time All-American at Ohio State, 331 tackles, 8 interceptions. He was the 2002 consensus All-American, and he was drafted in the 2nd round, 58th overall. Michael Doss. National champion, by the way, as well.
Okay.
A captain. Captain on the national championship. 2-time captain.
All right. Well, my guy's more of like an inspirational story. Can be like,
okay.
Rudy.
Okay.
So my guy's name is Louis Oliver. He played from 85 to 88. He actually was a walk-on. So he wasn't even like highly recruited. He was a walk-on at Florida, and he went from that to play 4 years actually. And he was also a captain. He was a 2-time All-SEC, 2-time All-American. He had 342 tackles in his career, 11 interceptions, returned for 173 yards, and he was drafted in the 1st round, the 25th overall pick in the 89 draft.
Good for him. What a story. That is a cool story. Very cool. Okay. My number 1 is Jack Tatum. He was arguably one of the best Ohio State players of all time. He was drafted 1st round, 19th pick, 3-time first team All Big Ten. He in 69 and 70, he was consensus All-American. He was the Defensive National Player of the Year, and he was actually voted. He actually came in 7th in the Heisman race that year as a strong safety at Ohio State. Anywhere I looked, I had a really hard time. I could not find any of his tackles, interceptions, and all that good stuff. I'll keep looking while you're talking, but having a hard time with it.
Well, my number 1 is Reggie Nelson.
Okay.
He only played 2 seasons at Florida. He actually did he went to junior college for 1 year and then went to Florida. So both of my guys are really like these underdog stories, which is pretty impressive. So he played 2 seasons.
Doesn't add any points. I mean, it doesn't make it any better.
No, but it's still it's cool.
Nice. It's nice.
It's a cool thing. Because most of the players in these teams are not those kind of players. These are the guys who are highly recruited,
right?
Highly sought after. But these 2 weren't. So he played for 2 seasons at Florida. His sophomore and junior year, he had 97 tackles and 7 interceptions, one of those for a touchdown. He was 2-time All-SEC, 2-time All-American. He also had 12 punt returns, so he was, multi-dimensional player. And he won the Jack Tatum Trophy for the top defensive back in the country.
That's nice.
Yes, it is.
Do you know who that award is named after?
Jack Tatum. That's what I just said.
I know.
So, and then Reggie Nelson was drafted in the 1st round, the 21st pick in the 2007 draft.
Yeah. Okay. So it's nice that your guy won my guy's award. Good for him. So I think it's pretty clear.
So wait, did your guy win the Jack Tatum Trophy? No?
I think so. I think it's named after him.
No, it's not. It's actually named after a different Jack Tatum. It's a coincidence.
Oh, is that what it is?
It is.
I think it is.
Prove it. You can't even find tackles on your guy. So.
I mean, he had 37 interceptions in the NFL. He had I can't find his college stats anywhere.
Don't tell me his NFL stats.
He was drafted round 1. I don't know. It's hard to find, but also Jack Tatum's a national champion as well.
So is Reggie Nelson. Actually, I think he beat the Buckeyes, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, he did.
Oh, did he?
He did.
Very interesting.
06 national champion. Did I not mention that? Oh, yeah.
Oh.
I thought I did. Maybe I didn't. Yeah, he went pro after they beat the Buckeyes. And he also had an interception in that game. So, not to rub it in or anything.
Yeah. Yeah, we had a rough year that year. Well, not year. It was a great year. Rough
It
championship.
was just a rough game. Yeah, it was one of those games. I get it.
Yeah, but all right. So Chase, that's up to you. It's hard to not pick Jack Tatum when
Easy not to pick Jack
the
Tatum.
award was named after him.
He doesn't have any stats.
He had enough stats to be the 7th in Heisman voting that year. He had enough stats to be the National Defensive Player of the Year and have the Best Defensive Back award named after him.
Can't prove it was named after him.
It's the Jack Tatum Award, and Jack Tatum is arguably the best defensive back to ever play the game.
There are so many Jack Tatums.
Okay.
Like, I know 3 Jack Tatums myself.
All right. So, Chase, hopefully we hear from you. Hopefully you're doing well, and we'd like to hear from you. So let's move into our final segment here, our top picks. I mean, not our top picks, our picks of the week, our top 6. Number 6 is a tough one because Wisconsin has fallen off, and I don't expect them to be back unless some crazy things happen. So, Wisconsin, you played really well up until last week, and you'll be missed from my top 6. So, number 6, Tim Jones.
Number 6, I have the University of Florida.
Why?
Because their only loss was in a close game at LSU. And outside of that, they've played extremely well. They had a rough environment this past weekend, but they pulled away in the second half against an overly confident South Carolina team. And I see them projecting forward. I think they're going to come back to beat Georgia and win out the rest of their games to head to the SEC championship.
Okay. My number 6 is Penn State because the Big Ten is better than the SEC.
Please.
And Penn State beat Michigan 28-21. Again, Michigan is a quality win because they are a good football team. And so it's a big deal when you beat Michigan, and they beat them 28-21. Their conference record's 4-0, and they are still an undefeated team. And so it's really hard to not put them at least at number 6. And they are a dark horse this season because I am officially paying attention to Penn State.
Okay.
Number 5?
Number 5, I put Alabama at number 5.
Ooh.
Because
they were number 1 last week, Tim.
I know, but here's what happened. They lost Tua. We don't know what his health status is going to be moving forward. Supposedly, they're hoping he's ready for the LSU game. I don't see it. Even if he doesn't limp on the field against LSU, he's not going to be the same player.
Be a shell.
I think that was the difference. LSU beats them.
Okay. So Alabama is out of the playoff for the first time in the playoff era in your mind, Tim?
Well, it's not a sure thing, but right now they're not my top 4. Okay. So, these other teams can lose. Things can happen still. But as of right now, I just don't think they're going to be LSU. So, I don't know how they're going to get in.
Okay. I have Clemson. They are staying steady at number 5, and I am not seeing that change for me. I don't know. They don't play anybody, so they're going to keep running the table, but I don't think that they're a good team. Just like my same reasons why I think Bama should be lower.
Oh, wait, did you say Clemson's not a good team? Because they're going to have less than 4 losses.
Clemson is a good team, but they're not playoff good.
I'm just messing with you. I knew what you meant.
It's relative. You know what? Does that make sense?
I knew what you meant. I'm just messing with you.
Yeah. Okay. 4?
Number 4, I put Clemson this week.
Hey.
Because they did struggle quite a bit against Louisville, and especially in the first half. They kind of pulled away in the second half. It looks to me like they're just trying too hard. Like they're starting to feel that pressure a little bit. They have some work to do. They have a young quarterback who last year was easy for him. Mm-hmm. This year, it just looks like he's trying to overthrow these balls, throw to places he shouldn't. He's not following his game plan. I still think they're going to work it out. I think by the end of the season, they're gonna have it fixed. But based on performance so far this year, I put them at number 4.
Okay. I have Oklahoma at number 4. I've been really impressed. Even Oklahoma's defense has looked better, and Jalen Hurts is the real deal. He's so good, and I like watching him play, and I'm actually rooting for Jalen Hurts to do well. It's just such a good story. So I want Oklahoma to be in the playoff, and I want Jalen Hurts to get a shot at Alabama in the playoff. I'm rooting for that.
So I have Oklahoma
beats Bama.
I have Oklahoma at number 3.
Okay.
And I agree. Their defenses looked pretty solid. They did really well against West Virginia this past week, and their offense absolutely dominated them. Mm-hmm. So I'm also excited to see them in the playoff matched up against who? You have to wait and see.
I have Bama at 3, and I think how many times has Bama surprised us? Even if Tua goes down, I think they probably still have a quarterback who's waiting to show us all what he has. So I think the backup, he's not going to be Tua because nobody in college football is Tua. So I think that I don't even know who their backup is, but I'm sure he's going to be just fine, and he'll at least be able to game manage Alabama to W's.
I hear what you're saying, but I also think the run game hasn't been what it's been in the past.
Right.
So I'm curious to see how they handle that.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, by no means are they – see, Alabama has been number 1 or number 2. So to say that their running game isn't what it's been in the past, they still have a good running game. It's just
of course.
Alabama quality running game. So.
Yeah. Well, they haven't relied on it like they did in the past. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. So they may completely change it to run the ball more. We'll see.
Right.
All right.
Number 2.
Number 2 is Ohio State.
Oh.
I want to see what they do against Oklahoma in a play. I'd love to see that right now.
Yeah.
Ohio State. If either one of them actually played anybody non-conference wise, well, I think that would be a fun test.
Cincinnati's a good team. We're seeing that Cincinnati.
Stop. Don't.
Cincinnati's a good team.
You're embarrassing yourself.
I'm not. Cincinnati's good. Cincinnati may only lose one game all season, and that's to Ohio State. They're that good.
Well, are we going to get a national championship trophy like we did for Central Florida?
No. I mean, because they lost to Ohio State by quite a bit. So, no. But I think that Cincinnati is the real deal. So I think Cincinnati is better than anyone. Who'd Florida play in the offseason? And not offseason, but preseason. Are you
defending Ohio State's non-conference schedule by saying Cincinnati's a really good team?
Cincinnati is a really good team. They've actually had a tougher schedule than most teams. But anyway, I have LSU. I like LSU a lot. I think they're really, really good. And I think it's going to be Ohio State and LSU in the national championship. Number 1 then for you must be –
Number 1 for me is LSU.
Yeah.
So they play Auburn this weekend, so that's going to be their second to last real test this year. So at this point I'm rooting for LSU to win out, even to beat Alabama, and for Florida to win out and play again in the SEC championship. I think it'll be a fun game on a neutral site. That'd be fun to watch.
So if Florida beats LSU in the conference champion, is Florida in?
I think they have to be.
Yeah, I think you're right.
That means they beat Georgia, then win out, then beat LSU. I think they'd be in.
Yeah, I think you're right. I'd put them in at that point. So, and I have Ohio State. Ohio State, they, like I said earlier in the show, it's a different team than what I've even seen. It's all business, and they're just having a blast. I mean, it's funny. Like even our kicker just kicked a 55-yard field goal with ease on Friday. This team is just rolling at all cylinders. I haven't seen a weakness. The announcers made the statement. They said, look at the defensive line. Every single one of those guys is going to be playing on Sunday. Look at the linebackers. Every single one of those guys are going to be playing on Sunday. Defensive back, quarterback, running back. The only thing is that our offensive line is still growing, but they are a good offensive line. I wouldn't be surprised to see 3 of those guys playing on Sundays as well. So Ohio State is just clicking on all cylinders. Ryan Day is a creative offensive coach, and he's getting this team pumped, ready, and motivated every week, and it's pretty cool. I'm pumped. It's a noon game on Saturday against Wisconsin, so that'll be fun.
All right.
There we go. Top 6, Tim and Shipe Show. Tim, last final thoughts. Anything you want to add to the show before we end this bad boy?
Yeah, I think we should look at our picks against the spread.
Oh, gosh, yeah. Lay them out for us. I'm so sorry. I'm in a fog today.
That's okay.
Lay 'em out for us.
All right, let's recap from last week. So last week we had 4 games on our schedule, and if you recall, the week before I had absolutely laid an egg
Yeah, you
and did not pick anything correct, and you only picked one, and it was the one that mattered.
right.
Well, this past weekend we had 4 games. We had Ohio State at Northwestern. Ohio State was giving 27.5,
Yeah.
and clearly they covered that. You were on the fence for a second, though. I think I talked to you
was.
about that one.
I'm glad that I went with Ohio State. How could I ever doubt them?
That's right. The next one was Florida at South Carolina. Florida was favored by 5, and Florida easily covered that, no problem. We both picked that. Michigan State at Penn State. Penn State was favored by 9. We both
Michigan and Penn State.
Sorry, what did I say? Michigan State.
Yeah.
Sorry, Michigan at Penn State. Penn State was favored by 9, and we both picked Michigan to cover, and they did because they only lost by a touchdown.
Yeah.
And then the last game was Oregon at Washington. Washington was giving 3 points at home to Oregon. You took the home team here. I took the road team.
Yeah.
So I actually took all road teams this past week. Except, I took all road teams this past week, and Oregon covered by 1 on the road to give me that W.
I saw that. I was so annoyed. How good are these people at picking these spreads, though?
Unbelievable.
It's crazy. They're always so close. That's why it's so hard, because they, picked the spread by 3, and they Oregon won by 4. I mean, it's just wild.
Yeah.
So,
well, even this is off topic a little bit. In the NFL, the San Francisco against Washington game, I think the spread was 9.5, and Washington lost 9-0.
yeah,
It was unbelievable.
Right.
They're so good at what they do.
So good. All right, so lead us into this week.
All right, so going to this week, you are now down 5-2.
Yep.
These are standings. So this week we have 3 games that we're looking at. The first one is Notre Dame going to Michigan. I did this one for you. Michigan at home, favored by 1 point.
Michigan's favored?
By 1 point at home.
Give me Michigan.
Wow.
Yep.
You're doing it.
Yep. Give me Michigan.
All right, I'm taking Notre Dame all the way.
Okay.
On the road. I love it. It's exciting. All right, the next game is Wisconsin at Ohio State. Ohio State, well, first I'm going to tell you the spread, and then I'm going to ask you if it would have been the same a week ago.
Yeah, I know what the spread is.
14.5.
Yeah. No, I think it probably would have been a 10, 9.5, 10-point spread a week ago.
Okay. So I'm taking Ohio State to cover this.
Me too. So
right. I don't know with Wisconsin at this point. I think.
Yeah.
I just don't know. So I'm taking
Ohio State plays really well at noon. So I think Ohio State wins by 28, honestly. I think it's
wow.
Yeah, I think Ohio State's that good. I think Wisconsin is good. I just think Ohio State is that good.
Well, Ohio State wins by that much. It's not going to make Wisconsin look good, which is
no.
Not
yeah, but I think Ohio State's just that good. Okay, let me ask you, what does it take for Ohio State to leapfrog LSU? If Ohio State beats Wisconsin, give me a number, by what? They jump LSU.
It depends what LSU does against Auburn.
They
honestly
they cover the spread. I don't know. They win by 20.
I don't know if LSU beats Auburn, Ohio State would have to absolutely demolish Wisconsin. I think.
By how much?
Probably like 50.
By 50?
Yeah, because I think people are going to put no. Look at the Auburn LSU. Auburn's ranked 9th. People are going to weigh heavily on this game.
Yeah, but they're not that good. Like Auburn's not that good, is what I'm saying.
It's all relative. We already talked about this.
I know Auburn's not that good, and so wouldn't it mean the same for like LSU beats Auburn by a ton? Isn't it the argument the same that you're putting up here against Wisconsin?
No, the difference is the quality loss. Auburn lost to Florida. Wisconsin lost to Illinois.
I hear what you're saying, but all right, quality loss. Okay.
Yeah. So Auburn's playing LSU. LSU at home is favored by 11.5. Who you got?
Auburn. It's at LSU?
Yes.
Tell me the spread again.
11.5.
11.5. I'll take LSU. I'm going all road games this week. LSU by 14.
We're going all home games this week.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, going all home.
Yeah, I'm going LSU as well.
Okay.
I just think that LSU is too good for this Auburn team. They're going to –
So I'm only going to be able to make up one this week.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to, though. That's the thing. I just
Notre
don't think
Dame.
you're going to.
I think Michigan's I think they're going to bounce back, and I don't think Notre Dame's good. And I think that -1, that's a good spread. So I think Michigan wins maybe by 10. Probably.
Yeah, this game's a toss-up as far as the spread goes, so it's –
Yeah. Michigan by 10.
Well, that's bold.
That is bold. Michigan by 10. Calling it.
Mine's not because I love Notre Dame, so I'm super confident in them. It's more so I'm not confident in Michigan. So
right.
I'm excited. We'll see.
Okay. All right. Okay. Now, Tim, final thoughts.
Final thoughts. I think this is a week for Florida to get healthy. They don't have a game this week. So the rumor is against Georgia, every player except for, of course, Felipe Franks will be back against Georgia, 100% healthy,
Nice.
Ready to go for the first time all year.
That'd be nice. Final thoughts for me is I see this football season as things are starting to separate. We're starting to see who the real teams are and who the real teams are not. And so it's really exciting. This is a really exciting time of year. I see why the committee waits so long before coming out with their rankings, because right now teams are going to separate. We're going to see Notre Dame fall off because they're not a great team. We're going to see teams like Auburn fall off. And this is where we're really going to see who Florida is after their bye week. We're going to really see who the real deal is. Who are these teams, and can Alabama overcome an injury to their star quarterback? Looks like Florida has recovered after an injury to their quarterback. And so we're seeing people are going down, and we're seeing who these teams really are. And it's a very, very exciting time of year. And so hang on tight, keep your eyes peeled, keep your eyes open on college football, because things are getting exciting. Thank you so much to our sponsors. Thank you so much to the Press Play Podcast Network and everyone involved in making this podcast possible. He's Tim Jones. I'm Aaron Shipe. This is the Tim and Shipe Show. Thanks for being a part of it.
Go Gators.